Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Keeping It Real Estate with Gavin and the lovely Nici. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Doing great. I thought we'd talk about something today that comes up a lot in real
Perfect.
estate, not just in our area, the Glow region, but obviously nationwide. A lot of times I'll get calls from customers and clients saying, I've inherited a home. Now what do I do?
Love
So
this.
I just want to talk about a little bit. I'm not the expert. I'm not an attorney. I'm full disclosure and all that. I'm not an accountant. Those people play a major role in all of this. But I
Okay.
thought it's worth talking about. You know, inheriting a home can be a blessing, but it can also be really overwhelming if you don't know what to do.
Well, and I think too, the biggest thing that, you may or may not realize, is the fact that when this happens to us in the world, outside of the lawyer really informing us about, the first thing I'm doing is calling a realtor. That would be my first thought.
Right. And I think, a lot of people, and we'll break it down a little bit, that's great, you should, but you should definitely be, who is the executor if there's an estate involved, who's the attorney overseeing that. Number one, your phone call should be to an attorney.
Okay, but see, and this is where I think that it's hard because then I think to myself, well, what am I going to say to the attorney? What do I do?
Right. So we're going to talk about that. That's
Yeah,
our
no,
episode today.
I'm so happy we're doing this topic today because
And again, I'm
everybody.
not the premier expert, but I work with people that have inherited homes enough and estates and all that sort of thing, and it happens all the time. You see it a lot in our area. So I thought let's have the conversation so at least you
Thank
have
you.
some steps underneath your belt to know what you can do. And kind of walk you through a little generic step-by-step process so that you can make informed decisions. So
Yeah.
first decision when you've inherited that home is, what are your options? Let's back it up even further before you're making that phone call. Like Nici said, first thing I'm going to do is call a realtor. Okay, but let's talk about what your options are. You have three primary paths. You can move into the home, you can keep it as a rental or investment, or you can sell the property. And let's talk about that a little bit. If you're going to move into it, is it a lifestyle fit? What's the upkeep on it? What are the taxes? What do you know about this house? Because you might or you might not know about the house.
That's true, yeah.
Right? If you're going to rent it, it's kind of a cool thing. You got some income potential. You already have your house, but you want to keep it for that income potential. And are you comfortable with that? Are you ready to be a responsible landlord? Or is it in everybody's best interest that you sell it, that you cash out and you simplify an estate? And a lot of times I'm finding that folks are going with that third option, that they're going to sell it.
Okay.
A lot of times. There is somebody in the family typically that wants the home, but can they afford it? Have they been financed? Yada, 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 the whole
And
buyer
they would
process.
do like a buyout from
Yep,
the
and
estate.
everyone's got to agree to it. So, those are the three options that you want to think about right away. That's kind of going to direct what your next steps are. So, this
Okay.
is not a one-size-fits-all answer, right?
True, you're right.
It really depends on your goals, your finances, and the condition of the home. And it might be that you're not the only person that inherited it. A lot of times it's siblings or an aunt and an uncle. It's more than one person that has inherited the property.
Oh.
It's not just a singleton necessarily. So that's what's really important. So that's why it's critical. Your first phone call should be an accountant, because there's tax implications to when you inherit a property. Okay? The attorney, because you need to understand the estate and the structure of the estate. Who's the executor? Who's been named that? Where's the will? All these good things. Do they address the property? And then maybe a realtor. Once you've got your accountant and attorney conversation underway, you understand the unique nature. Again, not a one-size-fits-all ever. Do not assume anything. That's why those first phone calls should be accountant and attorney. And then probably at that point, your attorney and your accountant will recommend that you reach out to a realtor to talk about the market value and the strategy. And a lot of times people want to talk to a realtor to get a CMA done of the property to understand the value, because they're toying with either keeping it, renting it, or selling it.
And a realtor could help with all of that and get that done.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can help you understand what the value of the property is.
Okay.
Yep, but again, your first phone calls should be accountant and attorney, okay? Legal must knows before you sell, okay? And this is where people get really tripped up. You go with your intuition of, I'm going to just sell this right now. No, stop. This is where people get tripped up. There's things when we get, again, I am not an attorney, but You have things in regards to a probate versus a trust. How was that home left to you? A probate requires a court process to transfer ownership. If it's in a trust, it's a smoother transition. So that's why you need to talk to the attorney. How was this home left to you or others? Is it part of an estate or is it part of a trust? That is going to direct what your path is forward. And you have to establish who has the authority to sell the home. Don't assume that you can just go ahead, call a realtor, get documents signed, and sell the house. I can tell you, I've seen where sellers have done that, or beneficiaries of an estate have done that. They've maybe not really done their due diligence in the nuances of the sale. They've listed the home, and now we've got the home under contract, and it's taking us 6 months to get the thing sold because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They put the cart before the horse. I cannot underscore this enough.
Okay.
Talk to the attorney. Talk to the accountant. You've got to establish who has the authority to sell, who has the authority to sign listing documents. Is it an executor of an estate? Is it an administrator of a trust? Are there multiple heirs? There could be title issues. The title must be clear before closing. And so you've got to really do a lot of homework up front. We do not have time in a 15-minute radio show to talk about all those things.
Right.
That's why you're going to hear me say, yet again, talk to the attorney, talk to the accountant, because to be able to sell that property, the title must be clear before closing. Any liens or judgments or ownership disputes can delay everything. So if you've not cleaned that property up and have clear title, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to sell it.
Ooh, okay.
It's very important. So you can't just list and sell the home because you inherited it. There's a legal process that has to be followed. And so get a real estate attorney involved early. It saves you time, it saves you stress, and most of all, it saves you surprises.
Okay. All right.
Number one.
Real quick, would this be a separate attorney outside of whoever the attorney is for the estate closing and so on and so forth?
That's a great question. It really depends. Sometimes the attorney handling the estate is also a real estate attorney. And
Okay.
if you've had that conversation that they're willing to and can do both, they will. Sometimes it's not unusual where you have the estate attorney and there's a different real estate attorney handling a sale of a property.
Okay.
So again, no one size fits all, very specific to the property and the situation and how the will was drafted. If it's in a trust, whatever that legal document states, that's why you need an attorney to interpret that for you. So you could have one or multiple attorneys working on this. And of course, we know in a real estate transaction, you've got the listing agent, you've got the seller's attorney, but you're also going to have a buyer's attorney involved. You could have multiple attorneys working on an estate sale like this.
Wow.
Okay. So step by step, when you inherit that home, let's back up. We talked about the legal stuff and what you want to decide to do, but a lot of times maybe you've inherited it and it's a house out of state. You're not even living there or living here. Right? Okay, so you need to prepare the property. So secure the home. Make sure the locks are operable, or are you changing the locks to make sure that it's secure? What about the insurance and utilities of the property? Where is all of that?
Oh, yeah.
You have to understand all that. The first thing people start doing is cleaning out the personal belongings. And a lot of times people want a service that helps them with that. That's an overwhelming process, especially if you've lost somebody, you're grieving, and then you're also dealing with the business of that loss. So it's clearing the home, it's protecting the home, it's securing the home, and you're also at the same time evaluating the condition. Maybe Mrs. So-and-so lived there a long time, and you didn't realize there was this kind of slow leak in the basement or in the bathroom, and now it's created some damage, and that's, you got to really kind of evaluate what's going on with the home. A lot of times you'll find when you inherit a home, not always, but a lot of times you'll find deferred maintenance. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Somebody couldn't hear or see or smell something anymore. Outdated interiors. We have a market full of these homes in a state, or something that somebody has now left the home and maybe they've gone to assisted living or something. So outdated interiors. And a lot of people have emotional attachment to the property or the contents.
That's the key there.
So, a lot of times I hear from people, what their options are. They want to sell the property as is. They don't want to make cosmetic updates. They want to sell it as it is. Well, that's going to back into your conversation with your realtor in regards to the condition and the comps. It's not to say that you're going to renovate the home to sell it. A lot of times they are sold as is, not just cosmetically, but in terms of the mechanics, because the estate oftentimes doesn't have the money to put into the home to get it prepared to sell. You might make some light improvements, like if we know that there's an active, serious leak going on, I'm going to recommend that you get a plumber over there ASAP to stop that, because it's going to impact the condition, your utilities, insurance, and all that. It's very uncommon that people do a full renovation of an inherited home. It's much more likely.
Sell.
Yeah. It's much more likely that they're going to do selling it as is if it's in stable condition, or make some light improvements. But not every dollar you spend equals a return, so that's why strategy matters. That's why a lot of times in a estate, like I said, it's going to be selling as is or some light maintenance. A lot of times on an estate, on the buy side, when we see that, it's oftentimes that the estate is not willing to make any repairs. So again, that as is model. So that's really important. If you get to the point where you are working with a real estate agent and you're working with a listing agent, this is what a good agent in this scenario is going to do. They're going to give you a market analysis, because the pricing is key. They're going to give you a strategy, like if you're planning on selling it as is, or you're going to do a few improvements. What's your price differential on that? That's what a good agent's going to do. They're going to give you some recommendations for vendors, like people that clean out the home if you're overwhelmed and can't do it yourself. Contractors to fix those leaks or something that's really pressing. And estate sales, that's a big one. I have somebody I refer people to for estate sales all the time. A good listing agent is going to talk to you about marketing exposure of the home and how they're going to manage offers and the negotiations when you do get offers. These are all the things that are typical in a typical or normal sale that apply to an estate. But those are the things when you actually get to the point where you're going to list the home, if you've decided to do that, this is what a good agent's going to talk about. And there's special considerations that real estate agents will make for an inherited home. It's often that sold as is scenario, as I've mentioned, but we also have to know that we're going to be working with multiple decision makers. It's very rare that there's just one executor. Maybe I'm working with one executor, but all the siblings are weighing in. Right. And so as a listing agent working on a sale of an inherited home, I'm working with a lot of decision makers. I'm usually sitting at a table with 4 people talking this through. And so they may or may not be the signatories. In other words, they may or may not be the ones that have executive power to sign off on things, but they're decision makers. And they're part of the process and the conversation. So that's a big deal, okay? And there's a lot of emotional and logistical complexity to estate sales, because we want everybody on board, but at the end of the day, there's usually 1 or 2 people that are officially assigned as an executor that have legal right to make those decisions. Okay. So my role, or your listing agent's role in an inherited property, is to simplify that process and to protect everybody's interests and to help you make a confident decision. So you're really refereeing a lot at the same time. It's emotional because you've probably lost somebody. You're dealing with contents. Someone wants to sell it as is. Somebody wants to make repairs. That's why we really have to weigh the pros and cons of how you sell the home if and when you decide you're going to sell an inherited home.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you get, let's say you go to market, you get activity on the property, and then we're getting to the point where you actually get an offer and you accept the offer. We're still just like with a normal transaction. We are still navigating inspections and appraisal. I think people selling an estate or inherited home, they have to understand it does still act like a normal sale. If somebody's borrowing the money and taking a loan out to purchase this property, there's going to be inspections. There's going to be an appraisal. And if it doesn't appraise, we have to get through that. We still have to have title and legal clearance on the property. We still have to have closing and transfer of ownership. So everything still gets mimicked very similarly to a normal transaction, and you've got to understand that. So, timelines can really vary, especially with estates, because if the borrower, the buyer on the property, you've accepted their offer, you love the price, but your listing agent told you this is subject to appraisal, And if the appraisal indicates that the roof needs to be repaired, guess what? That's going to buy into, it's going to calculate into your net of what you're going to get. And sometimes the estate is saying, well, we don't want to do that. We don't have the money for that. We're parting with grandma's house. Well, then we're going to bust up that deal. We should really know that ahead of time if they're going to and willing to make any, concessions for that. There's a way to get through the transaction, but that's why that listing agent having that conversation from the beginning with all those multiple decision makers needs to get to that point in the process to know, are you guys going to make any repairs? So that might really feed into how we position the property, the strategy of what kind of financing types are we taking. Because if we're going to take every financing option under the world, under that umbrella, we might have appraisal findings that make us have to do something that you don't have the ability to perform. So, you've got to decide your path before you put on the market. Often, I'll go back to the top of the episode here, where people just immediately want to call the realtor. Don't do that, because it's layers of legality and numbers and accounting. You got to talk to the attorney, you got to talk to the accountant, then meet with an agent. Maybe you're meeting with several agents to discuss their experience dealing with an estate.
Yeah.
You want an agent that has experience with that and gives you your options, and is very strategic so that you can decide your path, you can handle the legal steps, you can prepare the home, and you can work with the right professionals. So if you've inherited a home and you're not sure what to do next, let's talk. Probably the first thing, give me a buzz. I'm going to say, who's your estate attorney? Who's the executor? Did you talk to your attorney? That's all right. But call me. Yeah. So even if your first phone call is the agent, that really seasoned agent who understands how to work with an inherited property should be asking you right away, who's the executor? Are you the executor? Do you have those papers? Have you talked to the real estate attorney or the estate attorney? And have you talked to your accountant? Then we can start moving and using all those multiple pieces to work together to get the property sold, if that is what you've decided to do.
True. That sounds like a lot.
It's a lot,
Not going to lie to you.
Beyond that, there's it then acts, once you get listed, it acts like a normal transaction in some ways and most ways. But again, it comes down to, like in a normal sale, like we've talked about on this show, the buyer's got certain financing behind them, and now the appraisal's called for something. Even if they don't have a home inspection and don't hit you up for repairs, if we get to the appraisal, it's got to appraise for value. It's got to appraise if there's repairs requests. The lender's not going to give that buyer the money to purchase the home and close the sale if those repairs aren't addressed. So it's very unusual that a buyer would pay out of pocket on a property they don't own to make those repairs. So you have to look to the estate, and you have to have this conversation well ahead of listing and well ahead of a sale. Are you going to be able to withstand that and make those repairs, make the process go through? A lot of it's a wait and see, but that's usually when we are looking at offers at the time of the contingencies of those offers, that's how I'm presenting it to the estate members, the executor or the family members or the decision makers of, this is how this might go. You might like the price tag on this one, but you're going to have to do a lot of different repairs.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe not. There might not be any findings. So that's why oftentimes you'll see an inherited property that's for sale in a estate being sold as is. No fuss, no muss. They're trying to make it clear. Now, it's going to make a lot.
Do they have to state literally the words as is?
Well, you want it in the listing, so they don't have to. And they can also say things like, we're not going to respond to repairs requests as a result of a home inspection or an appraisal.
Okay.
There's different ways to say it, but if the house has got to be sold, sometimes the house has got to be sold. You got to do what you got to do, and a lot of times it's just reflected in the price, right?
Okay.
So then you think the house is worth $200,000, but you're not willing to do the $50,000 of what it needs. So list it lower.
Right. See
if you get a cash offer with no appraisal. Things like that. So remember, there's tax implications. There's capital gains considerations. There's selling with multiple heirs. There's estate sales versus cleanouts. There's all these things that go into that. But start with your attorney, start with your accountant, call a trusted real estate professional that can help walk you through this unique process of when you inherit a home and if you, in fact, decide that you're going to sell.
Whew, that was a lot.
It's a lot.
But
I'm here to simplify it here, and any good agent is.
And see, that's all we ask of you.
Yeah. And we spend a lot
Don't
of
make
time
me
up
remember
front.
everything. Just, you know what? I'm going to
Right.
call Gavin.
Yeah.
And have her just walk me through every step and process.
There should be an alarm to someone when it seems too simple to be true.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I've been on the other side of, there's been a listing that I'm representing the buyer. It's in an estate, and they didn't really do what they were supposed to do ahead of the listing. They just listed it. And now we're waiting for months to get all that work that was supposed to be done prior to a listing done. Yes. Yes. And so, it happens. It's going to happen. And it's oftentimes nothing. Someone tried to be mean on purpose or do something illegal or wrong. But a lot of times people don't know.
They just
Don't know, and that's why you've got to contact the attorney, the estate attorney, a real estate attorney to really understand. You got to dot your I's, you got to cross your T's.
I never even
and then
heard
when
of half
you're
this
ready to
stuff.
sell, then when you've got confidence, that listing agent should be asking right away, let me see the executive documents. Who's the executor? Who has the right to sell this? Not just sign here, let's put a for sale sign tomorrow. That's a huge red sign.
Would that be
Red
something
flag.
where you might even have to contact or talk with or keep in touch with that lawyer?
Absolutely. And we always do. No matter. Okay. And so again, there's a lot of things that once you get listed, it's very similar to a normal sale. It's just that usually the nuances are that we have to follow all the legal cleanup and title and everything that the estate attorney or real estate attorney is telling us to do. And a lot of times these homes are often sold as is. And so buyers have to understand that too. That means there's no property condition disclosure. And I think we've talked about that in other episodes as well. But again, a lot to pack into a 50-minute episode. This was just meant to be a teaser to bring it to your attention because we are seeing it a lot in our market. So if you have questions, call me, Gavin Townsend, at 585-344-1321. I'm here in Batavia at Hunt Real Estate, serving all of the Glow region and beyond. But yeah, if you don't know where to start at all, if the one thing you heard was call me, I'll get you started. And I'm going to tell you, call your attorney, call your accountant.
You know what, though? I think even just that one little step of telling me to call and get this done. I mean, that alone would probably help so many people. So
Absolutely.
I like that you are there ready to rock and roll from the very beginning and help walk through literally all the steps.
You got it. That's what we're here for.
I love it.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for Keeping It Real Estate here on WBTA.
And as always, we will be back next week right here on WBTA.